Hello, Geekers, and welcome back to another video. In this one, we have come up with our top 10 list of books that turned into a movie, but the writer hated it. Movies are such an interesting piece of brain work, and virtually everyone loves movies, including you. I mean, you're watching this right now, aren't you? Just kidding. Though, however, movie creators don't just wake into the idea of creating movies that rank up into Avengers-level staging, but instead go through the deep end process of making the scripts. In some cases, creators simply find something very interesting and partner with the authors to create a movie adaptation for it. Ever heard of the popular 90s movie Gone with the Wind or the very recent It? Good. Now those are examples of movies adapted from books. However, it's quite intriguing to know that as good as these movies might seem to you, in most cases, the authors of such books end up not liking the resulting movie. Surprised, right? Well, so are we. So why not let us go over some of these books that turned into a movie and the writers didn't like the result? 1. Mary Poppins. Oh, you're shocked? You better not be, because even though Mary Poppins might have ended up being one of the most cherished childhood movies for a lot of people out there, it totally wasn't for the author. For P.L. Travers, the author of the very popular Mary Poppins, the movie adaptation of her book was a big slap in the face. You might be wondering if Travers never saw the script before the movie was shot. She absolutely did. However, despite Travers' work to make the movie script great, all her edits were almost totally disregarded. She disliked every animated sequence of the movie, and in her discussions about it, she made it clear that, in her own view, the strict side of Mary Poppins, the magical nanny of the tale, were totally downplayed. Some pretty heated meetings were made over this with Travers reluctantly approving the premiere. Ever wonder why it took 54 years to see Mary Poppins return? Well, that's because Travers completely refused Disney from touching the rest of the series.
But then one day I learned a word that saved me aching nose.
The biggest word you ever heard, and this is how it goes.
2. Interview with a Vampire. A very popular 1994 vampire horror movie, but yet another session of failure for the writer of the book from which it was adapted. And so goes it. Just like the way Mary Poppins turned out to be a failure because the writer felt the character's role was downplayed, so also did the Interview with the Vampires. It wasn't until after casting had been completed for the movie version of her book, Interview with a Vampire, did Anne Rice voice out over one of the actors portraying one of her vampire characters. According to Anne Rice, she said, "Tom Cruise was no more my vampire, Lestat, than Edward G. Robinson is Rhett Butler." Wondering what this means? Well, it means Tom Cruise playing the role of the vampire, Lester, was no better than making Edward G. Robinson play the role Rhett Butler in the adapted movie Gone with the Wind. Anne said that the casting was so bizarre, she said it's almost impossible to imagine how it's going to work. However, when she saw the movie, she actually loved Cruise's portrayal and told him what an impressive job he'd done nevertheless. She still hasn't come around to liking Queen of the Damned and even went on telling her Facebook fans to avoid seeing the film that mutilated her books.
This place is cursed, damned, and yes, your master is the devil.
3. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was a 1962 novel written by Ken Casey that was later adapted into a movie of the same title. Released in 1975, the film adaptation of this book took over the Academy Awards by winning the Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Screenplay of the year. Nevertheless, Kelsey wasn't happy with the final result. To him, he was upset that the storyline wasn't told from the viewpoint of Chief Bromden. Though he totally claimed he never saw the movie, his wife said he was glad the movie was made.
Let me through. Let me through.
4. The Shining. Remember that 1980s psychological horror movie directed by Stanley Kubrick? Yeah, it was also based on Stephen King's famous 1977 books, The Shining. And just like every other book in our list, its movie adaptation also turned out to be a big slap in the face for Stephen King. And just like other writers would say, Stephen King felt that the movie wasn't able to perfectly portray the type of evil depicted in the book. In his own words, King said, "I had admired Kubrick for a very long time, and I had great expectations for the project, but I was deeply disappointed with the end result." He continued by saying, Kubrick just couldn't grasp the sheer inhuman evil of the Overlook Hotel, so he looked instead for evil in the characters and turned the film into a domestic tragedy with only vaguely supernatural overtones. To put in a simple tone, the basic flaw of the movie was Kubrick's inability to believe that he couldn't make the movie believable to the audience. Five, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Remember that Roald Dahl's kid novel titled Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? So have you ever wondered why its successor, Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator, hasn't followed in the silver screen footsteps? That's simply because Dahl, the author of this children's fantasy series, felt the movie version of his book, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, was of very poor quality. According to statements from Roald Dahl, he said that he finds Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka to be pretentious and bouncy. From this, he was led to assume that the director of the movie had no talent or flair. And just according to the way P.L. Travers had it with Disney, Dahl vowed those film producers would never get their hands on the sequel of this book so that they couldn't ruin it just like they already did, at least not in his lifetime.
Sorry.
Mother? What's happening to me?
6. Uncle Wiggily in Connecticut. Uncle Wiggily in Connecticut was a 1948 short story by J.D. Salinger, and luckily for it, it was immediately adapted into a movie called My Foolish Heart in 1949. Unlike the plot of the book, the movie My Foolish Heart, according to the author, went so foolish into depicting a storyline with a swooning love story. 7. I Am Legend. If there's one author who has never had the best of luck in getting his novels properly adapted, then the call is definitely going to be for Richard Matheson. Unlike other great writers like Ben Mesrich, Gillian Flynn, and others who had their popular novels perfectly adapted into a movie, Matheson wasn't ever in such luck. Starting with the 1964 Last Man on Earth, 1971's The Omega Man, and even 2007's I Am Legend, Matheson has never once been impressed by the movie copies of his book. For The Last Man on Earth, he said, "I was disappointed in The Last Man on Earth. Even though they more or less followed my story, I think Vincent Price, whom I love in every one of his pictures that I wrote, was miscast, and I also felt the direction was kind of poor." For the second version, he said, "The Omega Man was so removed from my book that it didn't even bother me." And when I Am Legend starring Will Smith was announced, "I'm guessing you know what follows, right?" Well, the author commented, "I don't know why Hollywood is fascinated by my book when they never care to film it as I wrote it."
They followed us home.
8. Sahara. Ever heard about the 9 million square kilometers desert in Africa called Sahara? Oh, I'm just kidding. But you probably must have heard or even seen the famous 2005 action-adventure comedy film called Sahara. Now, I know what you're thinking. Was it also adapted? Yes. It was an adaptation of the best-selling Clive Cussler book of the same title and, like others, was a failed job from Cussler's viewpoint. However, unlike the others, Cussler went far into suing the producer, claiming they violated their agreement of the author having approval over the script. Now you're guessing he won, right? Well, sorry to break it to you, but he didn't because after years of litigation, he was asked to pay $13.9 million for legal fees incurred by the production company. Nine, Forrest Gump. Despite being one of the most famous movies of the 1990s, Forrest Gump never flew far away from the dislike of the writer in the book. Adapted from Winston Groom's famous Forrest Gump novel, this movie has some great amount of credits. However, according to Winston Groom, he said the movie never deserved any of the praise it received. He was dissatisfied with the fact that the screenplay eliminated plot points from the book and toned down the language and sexual content. He was so unhappy with the film adaptation that he began the book's 1995 sequel, Gump & Co., with the line, "Don't ever let nobody make a movie of your life story." Don't blame Groom for being so blunt, as he wasn't even mentioned in any of the 6 Academy Award acceptance speeches. "10. A Clockwork Orange. In 1971, Anthony Burgess's satirical comedy novel was adapted into a movie of the same title, A Clockwork Orange. Despite the movie's success in the 1970s, Anthony Burgess never liked the movie this book was made into. He disliked the movie so much that he said he regrets writing the book in the first place. In his own words, Anthony said, "The book I am best known for, or only known for, is a novel I am prepared to repudiate. A jeu d'esprit knocked off for money in 3 weeks, it became known as the raw material for a film which seemed to glorify sex and violence. The film made it easy for readers of the book to misunderstand what it was about, and the misunderstanding will pursue me till I die. I should have not written the book because of this danger of misinterpretation.
I'm cured! Praise God! You're not cured yet.
Now I'm guessing you know why your favorite novel hasn't been made into a movie yet, right? Don't thank us. Just make sure to like, hit the subscribe button, and turn on that little notification bell. So, which of these authors do you think had the right feeling about their movie? Let us know in the comment below, and see you in the next video.